A warm welcome to your online human physiology class from Moorpark College. I am Dr. C, also listed as Dr. Alex Cheroske, and I will be your tour guide for this semester of the human body and how it works. So the main things that we're going to be doing tonight is some introductions both to myself as well as to the course. Talking about some of the technology and how things are going to be delivered, looking at the syllabus, all of that typical type of first session action items. Before I do that, though, before I get too far in doing that, I want to give you a brief orientation to some of the tools in CCC Confer here. So we've got 17 of us in here tonight, but there's actually 30 in the class. So we're hoping we're going to see a few more show up, saunter in the electronic door, if you will, hopefully in short order. But we also don't want to keep you, successful, on-time people, waiting. And so one of the things I wanted to show you is over on the left-hand side where we have the list of participants. You can see my name at the top. Then you can see Adriana Garcia underneath, and Allison Grant, and Amanda. Just up above that area, you'll see a few radio buttons. On the left side, there is one for an emoticon, so you can select different emoticons to use. The next one to that shows a little kind of headshot of somebody with a little clock next to it. That is a button that you can use if you need to leave the room. The one next to that is one for raising your hand if you have a question. And to the right of that is a box with a check mark that will allow you to simply vote with a green check mark as yes or a red X as no. And so before we get too far, I want to make sure that you guys are hearing me and at least some of those different tools are working well. So let's do this. Let us all, if you can hear me, go ahead and click on that check mark and give me a yes. I guess if you give me a no, I will also know that you can hear me. Okay, so we got a lot of green check marks there. We're waiting, let's see, David, we're still waiting to hear from. Tap him a note. And of course, below that is the chat area, and a couple people have used the chat area already. So that is an area where if you have a question, when we're meeting online here, you can raise your hand, or after you raise your hand, you can type into the chat area. So for instance, David has now gotten my message, but he can't hear me. So if when we're going through our discussions, you have a question, what you can do is raise your hand. A lot of times we don't have, 5 tons of questions at the same time. So really, if you have a question, you can just start typing it out in the chat area, and it will then show up in the chat when you're done, and I'll address it at that time. But if I don't see your chat or your question and you want to get my attention, or if there are a number of questions at the same time, then raising your hand would be a good tool to use as well, because what you can do then is raise your hand. It gives me a signal so that I know that there's a question. And if there's more than one question, it actually gives me a number and tells me the order in which those questions came in so that I can address them also in order. So that's kind of a cool thing. All right. So great. So now David can hear me. That is all working well. All right. So it sounds like everybody's on track with some of those tools there. And of course, like I said, use those at any time if you like for anything that you may want to share with us or ask a question or whatever. Okay. So one other thing I can do is I'll turn on the video for just a minute. Usually the way we run these sessions is as you've seen here, I usually use the audio and you hear it come through your computer, and then any questions that you guys have, it's easier to type into the chat area. We do have the possibility of quote-unquote sharing the mic, but often it gets a little bit more cumbersome because people forget to click it off or they're clicking it on and stuff like that. But if you really do find that typing won't handle a question or something, we do have the choice of allowing you to use audio. The video, I use it every once in a while just so you can see a talking face, but it tends to, because it's moving video, it tends to eat up bandwidth a bit. And so if you have a slow connection or something like that, it can make it a bit choppy. And so I don't use it as often. But let's see what we can do. Give you a shot here. There I am. See, now it's not just a voice coming out of nowhere. You can see that I'm actually here. And my glasses kind of reflect there. Now you can see me. There I am. So you can see I'm not totally bald. That is actually a wetsuit and a hood that I'm wearing in the dive shot. But yeah, so like I said, I usually don't have the video on because it tends to slow things down. But if there's a need for it, or if I want to touch base with you, I'll certainly turn it on, and we do have that as an option. Let me pop that off again real quick. Okay. So the other things in terms of the system we'll be using here, CCC Confer, this is the way that we'll meet each week. And so each week on Thursday nights at 8 p.m., we will meet for a discussion section. And really the discussion section that we will run is kind of, I don't know, threefold, if you will. Number one is to kind of check in and give you guys updates in terms of where you should be and the pace of the course and what's coming up and things like that. The second thing is I usually kind of go over, if you want to consider it, the high points of the chapter or the system that we are learning that week. And so if there are especially difficult topics or physiological concepts in there, I might hit on those and kind of reiterate those or something like that. But then also the third function for these sessions is so that we can have a live interaction. We can do a Q&A section. So if there are things that you've been studying, that you watched in lecture and you don't understand, we've got a way to connect to each other so that we can get those questions answered. Now to be sure, you can always email me, but one of there's certainly pros and cons of the online format. You know, the flexibility is great, the flexibility both in time in terms of location, but at the same time, a lot of times some people can feel disconnected, which if you're a truly independent person, if you've got all these things going on, that can be a fine thing. But we also try to have a bit of community as well. And that's why I had also asked for pictures of you guys or of something that you like so that we can put some faces to the various names that you'll see listed in the participant area. So I didn't check within the last 20 minutes or so, but these are the people that sent me pictures so far. So I think I only have about 12 of them. And again, like I said, we've got about 30 people in the class. So if you have not sent me a picture of yourself or something you like or something like that, do please do that so that I can finish assembling our photo roster here, both for me and for you. So again, so it's a little bit more personal, so we've got some links to each other. Some of the other great things about CCC Confer besides seeing things like photos is when we have these discussions, I can load up the PowerPoints that you will have seen in lecture, and we can go over them, and I can do various things with them. I can point to things, you know, much like a laser pointer. We can write on it, we can type into it, all kinds of things like that, so that when you really look at what we're doing, it looks very similar to what you might get even in the classroom. So we can do different figures and things like that. So there's lots of different things that we can do. And even colors, right? Very exciting. So it's really a great utility that gives us an experience that's pretty close to what we would have in the classroom. and that is certainly a benefit. Okay, so any questions on anything that we have seen so far, just in terms of the tour or anything? Any confusion out there? Any questions that we need to answer? All right. And to be sure, if there's a unique way to say your name or something like that, let me know also. I think most of the names I can figure out. For instance, so Cecily, is that Cecily or is it Cecily? Or so you can let me know. Oh, now I gave you two options, huh? So is it Cecily? I'm just going to say no, Cecily. Yes, see how well these things work? It's a good example of it right there. Okay, so I'll try to remember that. Okay, so Adriana has the questions. Leifa. Okay, great. So I'll continue to work on those. Please do remind me if I mispronounce your name. It's non-intentional. It's just like a regular first day of class type of thing. Adriana had a question in terms of the PowerPoints in Desire to Learn. So that's a very good question. So we will certainly go through all the aspects of the course and kind of what to expect as you are learning the different systems of the body, etc. But a short answer to that is yes. The PowerPoint notes are on Desire to Learn, and then the PowerPoints themselves are archived presentations from CCC Confer. Okay? So what we have is from semesters past, when I've done more of a live session, we've got recorded or archived lectures in this format that you have saved in a video file. And so again, we'll go over that, but you'll be able to have and see these lectures much like you would have lectures in class, but you can rewind them, watch them again, etc., and watch them or attend lecture on your schedule. So we'll look at that too. Okay. So what I'm going to do is show you another function of the system where I can show you what's going on in Desire to Learn and where you can find all the different resources for class. Now that being said, seeing this picture of me also reminds me that I wanted to give you a little bit of background on me, since you only see me in little snapshots or small video boxes. My background is that I actually got my bachelor's degree at UC Santa Barbara, and I got my master's at San Diego State, and then I got my PhD at University of Maryland. In all cases, they were actually in marine biology. So it's a little bit odd, although it does go better with the picture that you're seeing now. That being said, even though my, if you'd say, training is in marine biology, my trade, if you will, has always been anatomy and physiology. And so I started teaching anatomy and physiology as a grad student TA back in 1994 at San Diego State, and I taught it, gosh, all 3 years I was there doing the master's, and then I started at the community college at Miramar Community College in San Diego after that as an adjunct. Did that for a couple of years, and then went off to do the PhD. While I was out in Maryland, I also taught at University of Maryland as well as at community college out there part-time. And then when I finished up the PhD in 2004 is when I got my full-time job at the community college, and that community college was Moore Park. And so we moved back to California, and we moved to Moore Park, and I was full-time faculty at Moore Park for 2 years. And while I was there, I developed this online version of the physiology class. And so we offered a couple sections of it the very first semester. That was spring 2006, I think it was my first semester offering it. And I've been teaching it every semester since. And like I said, I was only at Moore Park for 2 years. We ended up moving, my family and I ended up moving here to Arizona, which is where I am right now. I'm just outside of Phoenix in a town called Gilbert, which is like a suburb of Phoenix. and I have a full-time job here at Mesa Community College, where I was hired to start their start their anatomy and physiology program at one of the smaller campuses of Mesa Community College. So I still do anatomy and physiology out here, both in the classroom and out of the classroom. I teach marine biology here once a year as well. Oddly enough, we do teach marine biology. We just can't get to the beach as easy as you can there. I taught marine biology while I was at Moore Park too. It's not quite as easy to get over to the coast from here. I do a study abroad program down to Mexico, where we do a field marine biology course during the summer. And so I keep busy with a variety of different things. But like I said, I've been teaching this course now for, gosh, 6 years, 6.5 years, something like that, in the online format, and it's gone very well for many students throughout the years, including myself. Okay, so with that introduction then, let us do the tour, as I was promising, of Desire to Learn, so we can see what to expect in the class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another function of CCC Confer, which is called App Share. So application sharing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the screen will change a little bit. I'm going to show you my web browser so that you can see Desire to Learn. Oh, but you don't want that window, do you? You want this window. Okay, so we're going to use the voting tool again. So tell me if you can see the Desire to Learn web page now. Allison can. Monique can. Noah's on board. Lauren's on board. Max, can you see things there? You all right? And Joseph, partial view. Christina has. Joseph's good. Christina, you doing all right? Can you see it? Partial view, sorry. Really blurry. That's interesting. It's small. Yeah, the far left side. The left side is actually where the toolbar is. So that's where I can see, where I can still see all the participants and stuff like that from CCC Confer. So we won't see the total left side, but that's okay. Okay, so hopefully most all of you have seen this before anyway, clearer and bigger, etc. Okay? So if I move, let's see if I move this down a little bit. I won't be able to see your responses, but you can see the left side there. So when we look at what we have on CCC Confer here, right, the main window here is going to be where I can post things. Now I'm always going to send out emails as well for major things, like reminders for a test coming up or something like that. But this area in the announcements or news area is where you are going to keep track of everything that is going on. Okay? So what we find is I'll put announcements there, and so you can see the announcement for today. On the right side here, you can see things like events. So events that are coming up, if there's a quiz coming up, if there's an exam coming up, they will be listed here with the time. Okay? Now, up here, there's a variety of different tools. There's going to be different tools for me than for you, but there's one for Course Home. If you've been navigating around and you can't find your way back, you can click Course Home there. There's one for grades there if you want to check your grades. There's one for quizzes there, which will be very important in terms of quizzes and exams. They will be found there. Okay. There's email if you want to email me from Desire to Learn, and a number of you have already. There's a calendar where you can go and view the calendar and see what's upcoming if you want to see it different from the events. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to go to the syllabus, and we're going to see that here. Okay. Okay, so April had a good tip in terms of reformatting the window size. Good, good, good. Okay, so here we see the syllabus. which you all should have either from the email or from seeing this on Desire to Learn. So let's take a look. So the course description is right there. This course is meant to be, is the exact same course that you would take on campus, right? It's just in a different format. So it is transferable to the CSUs and stuff like that. Now, for this, we're going to be going through the different systems of the body and learning about, right, how they function. Anatomy is not required prior to this one, but, of course, it does make it a bit easier because then you've had an introduction to these different systems, etc. But you do have to have your general biology and your chemistry already done. Okay, so in terms of what to expect, right? So it's a lecture lab class. Now with the lectures are actually archived on CCC Confer, okay? And when you look at it, you can find, like off of the front page, there was our archive links, an archive link to get you to the different lectures. So the lectures are going to parallel the different chapters in the book, which really go along with the different systems of the body. And so what you would want to do is on your schedule, on a weekly basis, you'd be wanting to complete the lecture and the lab portions of this course, okay? So this course is 4 credits, right? 3 hours of lecture a week, 3 hours of lab a week. That is your class time, right? So that's one of the things to remember, is that in an online environment, sometimes what you get is a kind of mishmash of what you feel class time is compared to study time, okay? So the class time is, what you're going to be doing is watching those lectures approximately 3 hours a week, and then doing labs in the PhysioX lab manual, which would also be approximately 3 hours a week, right? It's going to vary for different people. Now we do have the discussion sections as well. The discussion sections are like office hours. But what I say is, if at all possible, you make that a regular part of your schedule. And the discussion hours will be on Thursday nights, just like this, at 8 p.m. Okay? The 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday type of thing may have been a holdover from when I did this in the spring. Okay? So the live discussion sections will always be Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Okay? And you should attend those as regularly as you can. There's a good correlation between attending those discussion sections and grade. Now, I'm not saying that you attend all the discussion sections and you get an A. What I'm saying is that level of involvement and dedication with the course is a good correlation for doing well in the course. And online courses can be tough, right? Not tough in terms of the content, but tough in terms of, you know, really committing yourself to this regular pattern of doing your coursework, doing your studying, and stuff like that. Okay? Like we said, you should expect 6 hours of coursework, of class time per week, 3 hours of lecture and 3 hours of lab. Now, in general, on average, you expect 2 hours of study time for every hour of class time. Okay? Now it's going to vary, right? Depends on the class, depends on the person, stuff like that. But that's the average. So if we're talking 6 hours of class time, you can expect then an additional 12 hours of study time, right? So it's 18 hours per week for this class, on average, okay? Okay. So the discussion sections, the live discussion sections, like we're doing tonight, will occur on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Now, for exams that we have, and we'll look at the schedule, the class itself, when we look at the schedule, it's kind of organized around a Tuesday-Thursday schedule. Since we meet on Thursdays, I kind of gave you a pace in terms of the schedule for lecture and lab of a Tuesday-Thursday type of class. So sometimes you may have an exam on a Tuesday, or sometimes you may have it on a Thursday, and we'll look and see when that is. Now, 3 of the exams are online through Desire to Learn, okay? The other 2 are on-campus exams, so you're required to do 2 trips to campus where you actually have to take a shower and look presentable. Okay, and we'll see those in the schedule. All right. And even if you look at a calendar on Desire to Learn, you'll see all those different exams scheduled. So we'll see it in the syllabus. You'll see it on the calendar in Desire to Learn. Make sure that you get those on your own personal calendar, particularly those times when you have to come to campus. Because if you want to look at that schedule and you want to request those days off from work or whatever. Now, like we said, the discussion sections every Thursday night at 8 p.m. If for some reason you can't make it, these sessions are archived. Much like the lectures are archived on CCC Confer, these lectures are also archived. Okay? So what that does is it gives you a recorded version of these discussion sections if you want to go back and hear it again, or if for some reason you had to miss it. But I would say, like I said, make sure that you attend those as regularly as possible. Like I said, the online classes are so great in terms of their flexibility, but I also have to caution people because that same flexibility that is so great in terms of creating your schedule and things like that is oftentimes the slack, if you will, that people end up hanging themselves by, right? An online class oftentimes is like a gym membership, right? So a gym membership, you get a new gym membership and you're like, oh, I'm going to go all the time. It's 24-hour fitness. I can be there any time of the day or night, no problem. I'll be there all the time, right? Then all of a sudden, all these other things in your schedule, like your on-campus classes or your job or your family responsibilities or whatever, those things that have a regular schedule stack up and stack up and stack up, and then all of a sudden, in terms of the gym membership, it's the end of the day and you didn't make it to the gym again, right? So an online class can be like that too, but it can be oftentimes much more severe if you get behind like that in an online class. So we don't want that. Oftentimes the attrition, or basically the dropout rate in an online class, is more than a regular class because people don't really organize it well in their schedule. And so they get behind and then they have to jump out and do it at a different time, right? So the class itself, the content, it's difficult, right? How many of you have had anatomy already? Raise your hand or give me a check mark, yes or no. Okay, a lot of you. Like we said, it's not required. It's not a problem if you haven't, but it does give you a leg up, if you will. And you can see how it works with the hand raise, right? We can see the order in which those hands came in. Okay? So anatomy was probably a tough class too. It's a lot of content, right? It's like a science class and a language class all rolled into one. Okay? And physiology is also like that. Sometimes people have sometimes they'll have even a more difficult time, not always, in terms of physiology because it's more conceptual. How do these things work together, etc., as opposed to just what's this, what's that, what's that. So what you need to do, what I really recommend that you do, is look at your schedule and see in your schedule, if you've got your work schedule and your other classes and stuff like that, see where your physiology class is going to fit into that schedule. I don't care if it's like Tuesday at 2 in the morning for 2 hours you've got some time, and Friday from 9 to 11 in the morning you have some time, and then Sunday nights you've got a 5-hour block of time or whatever. That's going to be your class time period, right? But get it in your schedule and make a regular schedule so that when it comes to Friday morning and you're like, I feel kind of too relaxed around here. I'm supposed to be doing something. You get that pattern where you know, okay, this is my online class time and I need to do it. Okay? And you got to figure out your class time into your schedule and your study time as well. Okay. So, getting back to the syllabus, required materials, you can see them listed there. There is the textbook, which is Vander's Human Physiology. The latest edition is what we have. You could probably get by with older editions if you wanted to. It's just the page numbers and things like that. Those references would not mesh up. PhysioX Lab Manual is also something that you need because the way that the labs work, we said there's 3 hours of lab time a week, right? We'll look, when we see the schedule, we'll see that each week you usually have a computer simulation to complete in the PhysioX Lab Manual. So these are simulations of real experiments, but you don't have to sacrifice any frogs or chickens or anything like that in order to complete them. Okay? So you do need the PhysioX Lab Manual with the CD so that you can run those on your computer. And you will need 2 Scantron forms. Okay? Because for those 2 on-campus exams, you're going to be using a Scantron form. Alright, so like we said, there are 5 different exams that you're going to be taking. Exams 1, 2, and 4 are going to be online, and exams 3 and 5 are going to be in-house. Okay? Sorry, and this should say Desire to Learn instead of WebCT. WebCT used to be our old learning management system. So, all of the exams, though, are just like any other class, or like most other classes, right? These are closed book, closed notes, etc. exams. Whether it's online or whether it's at home, these assessments are supposed to assess what you've learned about those body systems, okay? And so the exams you have online are timed exams, and they'll be occurring through Desire to Learn. You'll find them in the quiz section here, and that's where you will log in. There'll be a window of time, and I'll remind you as we get closer to them. You'll have like between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. to take the exam, and you'll get an hour and a half to take the exam. And once you start the exam, the timer in Desire to Learn starts. You have 90 minutes, and you've got to submit it before the 90 minutes are up. Okay? So everybody's going to be taking it at the same time on the same day, just like any other class. And in terms of format, they're usually mixed format, right? Like multiple choice, a lot of multiple choice, but then also some essay questions. And there's a lab section on the exam. Now for the labs, we said that you're completing the computer simulations in the PhysioX Lab Manual, but you don't have to turn any of those in. Okay? You don't have to tear out pages and send them to me or scan them to me or anything like that. The way that you get credit, if you will, or points for doing your labs, is that there is, on each exam, 10 points, or 10% of the exam, that specifically have to do with the lab material. And so, if you've done the lab and you understand it, then you should be able to answer those questions. Okay? But you don't have to turn anything in terms of lab. Okay, so most of your points come from those 5 lecture exams. There's also a 50-point comprehensive final that we're going to be doing. We'll talk about that later on. There's going to be some online quizzes too. I may change these a little bit and have them be smaller quizzes that occur more frequently. But if I make that change, I'll let you guys know. Usually what I do is I've had a quiz on the material for the exam like the weekend before. So you can kind of check yourself, and it's a study aid, but you get points for it. And what I may do is actually do those a little bit more frequently. So rather than covering 4 chapters, it's like after we get done 1 chapter, then we do a quiz just on that chapter, a small quiz. And then you do a little bit at a time. So I'm working on that. I'll let you know. But in terms of grades, straight grading scale, if you will, based on the points that you earn. And so all of these different points from exams and quizzes and things like that go into a big pot, and then it's straight percentage from there. Okay, so words to the wise and things like that. Now when I say be on time, that's going to be for our live sessions, of course. But also, I would say be on time for whatever schedule you set up, right? So you want to make sure that you are maintaining that schedule. Don't crimp it. Make sure that you create a schedule and maintain it. Have integrity, right? So you want to make sure that you are the one completing these exams and submitting your work as yours, right? So just like in a regular class, if there's an issue, which I would hope that there's not, it does come up sometimes. People get panicked, and there's like anything else. They're clipping it from somewhere and putting it in there. And if that comes up, then basically you would get a 0 on that particular question. If it happens again, then you have a 0 grade for the entire assessment. So you would get like a 0 for the entire exam. So we don't really want to deal in the negative there, but what we're doing is working together to teach this information and have you learn this information so that you can go on to your particular program, to nursing or rad tech or whatever, right? This is how the body works, and you're going into a profession that has you dealing with the body. So, you know, I wouldn't want to get to an emergency room and think that the people that are working there are the people that kind of cheated on their exams or whatever. That would be quite worrisome to me. Okay, do the reading. Yes, reading would be a very good thing. You know, in another part of the syllabus, it talks about how most of the material that we will see on an assessment will come from the lectures, because the lectures are based on the book and the chapters. But there's always going to be some, you know, kind of more detailed questions that maybe I didn't get a chance to cover or really get into or something like that, that would come from the book, okay? So you got to read the book too, and it helps you to reinforce the stuff that I'm going over, but then also pick up some of those tidbits along the way too, okay? So reinforcement is like riding a bike, okay? So here's the desire to learn, as I was talking about. At least I got it in there, not calling it WebCT there. So that's their learning management system, where you download the lecture notes, where you take your online exams, where you see the announcements and things like that. You want to be in there regularly. Okay. Now, in terms of missed exams, it shouldn't be an issue with the flexibility that we have of you being able to do it in various places, except for those 2 days. You should be able to do exams. But if something comes up, right? If something comes up, you need to let me know as soon as possible, either before or immediately afterwards, so that a makeup is possible, okay? Now, it has to be an acceptable absence. It wasn't just like I didn't get back from Vegas on time or something like that, okay? So you need to let me know. So then I've listed a bunch of areas to get help, including our discussion sections and the tutorial center on campus if you have other classes that are on campus. If you have a disability, whether learning or physical or otherwise, there is the Access Center, and so access information is there. You would need to liaison with them, and then we would all work together to make sure that you are accommodated properly. And then there's also the distance education webpage. There is help specific to distance education there as well. So if you're struggling or something like that, check that out. And then there's some information about administration, some on-campus people. Now, besides the department chair and the dean, there is an on-campus person associated with this course. Dr. Janet Johnson is a full-time faculty member in the biology department, and she is the proctor for the 2 on-campus exams, okay? But she could also be, if you needed something on campus associated with class, and you need to touch base with somebody for some reason, she is another contact for the class, okay? All right, so let's take a look. Now, this is the tentative lecture schedule that you see here, okay? So you can see the chapters. Basically, we're going through every chapter in the book. On average, there's about 3 or 4 chapters per exam. And you can see the exam dates here, right? September 4th, September 25th, October 18th, November 13th, and then the final, December 11th. Exam 3 and Exam 5 plus the final are on-campus exams. Those are the 2 times that you need to come to campus. So you've got all the dates that you need to be ready for your exams, so get those into your calendar ASAP. Okay, so that's the lecture schedule. And so that means, right, Exam 2 is going to cover chapters 6, 7, and 8. And Exam 3 is going to cover chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right? Okay, the last thing we can see is the lab schedule. So usually what we have is a lab that complements what we're learning in lecture. Now, most of the cases, like I said, it's going to be a PhysioX exercise that you see here, but there are a few labs where there is a lab handout. In those cases, we'll talk about those special labs in the discussion section, and you'll have handouts or something like that pulled from Desire to Learn for those particular labs. again, when we look at the exam, then that exam will include those physio exercises as well. So for instance, exam 2 has a couple of handout labs, the vision exercise, the scientific article exercise, and then there's a neurophysiology lab on there too. So the lab section will deal with those 3 labs. Debbie says exam 2 is on Yom Kippur. That is a good point. So again, when we're looking at the schedule, if there are any issues with exams or anything like that, go ahead and send me an email, and we will figure those things out for sure. And is the final comprehensive? Yes. So there is a comprehensive final, but there's 2 aspects to it. So there's 2 different assessments that we're going to have that are comprehensive. One is a standardized test that the department is doing in terms of assessing how our different classes are doing, like all the physiology classes. And the other one is one where it's a comprehensive final that takes questions directly from our old exams, exams 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So we can talk about those as we get further down the road, but they do integrate some of that older information with it. But luckily for us, if you're worried about it, the amount of points for those are much smaller. Rather than being 100-point exams, it's only a 50-point comprehensive exam. Okay, Megan has a question. She says, what time are the on-campus exams? Excellent question. So the on-campus exams, like I said, Dr. Janet Johnson proctors those exams. And for the on-campus exams only, those 2 exams on October 18th and December 11th are at 6 p.m. Sorry, man, I need to adjust that there. So both the on-campus exams are at 6 p.m. Now I will, again, send you reminders as we're coming up to an exam, and especially as we get to the on-campus exams, I'll remind you of things that you need to bring and what room it's going to be, etc. But while the online exams are at 8 p.m., the on-campus exams are at 6 p.m. instead. Excellent question. So, I mean the 26th, right? 26th of what? What are we saying here? Well, in our schedule that we've got here, and I'll double check things afterwards. Exam 3 we've got on Thursday the 18th, and the finals on December 11th. So I'll have to take a look. There's something different than that. Now in terms of class, and I'll double check the schedule overall. But in terms of other classes, class conflicts can certainly be an issue. I mean, on one hand, you couldn't take 2 classes that were at the same time. Now that being said, right, with the flexibility of the online format, on a certain level it seems like, oh, well, it could be any time. But these exams occur on those days with this class. So if you have a class that meets and conflicts on those particular days, you would have to miss your other class. In general, I don't suggest, like if you had a Thursday night class or something like that, I would not suggest taking this class and that class of the same semester, because you're totally overlapping. You're going to miss things in one or the other class. So if you have a conflict, you can email me and we can talk about it specifically. But that's my general recommendation. Okay. So any questions about what we were seeing on Desire to Learn or in the syllabus, things like that? Maybe says their screen went gray. All the online exams occur at the same time. So everybody takes the online exam between 8 and 10 p.m. on those days that we saw in the syllabus, like we see in there. So everybody does it at the same time. Now again, if there's a particular conflict that something comes up, you need to let me know immediately, and we can try to figure something out if it's a justifiable excuse. But on a regular pattern, all the exams occur at the same time. Okay, so let me do this. I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop app sharing for a second here. Okay, I see Monique has a question and is typing, and that's fine. So we'll have her come see what her question is. Everybody should see me again on their screen. Well, Monique's typing right there. Actually, I forgot to show you one thing. A couple other things on Desire to Learn, so let me get that going up. Alright, so can you see Desire to Learn again? Okay, one of the things I want to show you is if you click Content, Content will actually show you all the various files that we have on Desire to Learn. So, for instance, you can scroll down and you can see lecture notes. And so you can see all of them here. So it says Chapter 3, Cell Lecture, Vanders. Chapter 4, Membrane Transport, Vanders, stuff like that. Right? So when you are going to listen to Chapter 3 or something like that and watch the archive and the archive lectures, the archive lecture schedule is here. And you can actually look at the schedule of what date. Like I said, the archive videos were from one semester when I was doing the archives, or when I was doing the lectures live in the webinar format. And what we did is we created archives of them, and now what we have is the flexible format so that we can use those archives when you guys need them. And so the archive lecture schedule allows you to see what date, because they're posted by date, it allows you to see what date we did the lecture for Chapter 3 or something like that, and then you can link to it and go to the website and view the particular Chapter 3 lecture from that date. You would also go here and get the lecture notes so that you would have those lecture notes with you so that when you're going through and watching the lecture in the PowerPoint presentation, you've got those lecture notes with you already, the PowerPoint notes. Okay. So one of the other things you'll see in the content area, if you scroll down, is there's a lot of different animations that are available on Desire to Learn as well. So always as you're going through a particular chapter, check in here and see what kind of animations are available. Obviously, some chapters there's not as many. You see there's only 2 animations for Chapter 3, Chapter 1, but Chapter 3 has like 14 different animations. So all those are loaded up there and ready for you to watch if those help. You know, it's always good to have, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video, who knows, that's worth 1,000,000 or something. So those can be quite helpful too. So Monique, were you still typing a question there? You might be typing a lot. Yeah, your content page will look a little bit different. You can see mine has pencils on here and stuff like that because I'm an administrator, so I can actually do things to it. But your content page should look somewhat similar in that it's organized into like lab manual or lab materials, lecture materials like lecture notes and things like that. Okay, let me go back again here. Monique had an excellent question. She asked if the exams, exam 5 and the final are on the same day. Yes, they are. So, like we said, the final exam, and we'll get more details about that as we get towards the end. The final exam is only 50 points, so it's half as long, and you've actually seen the questions before. So the smaller one, you'll have 2 hours for the final. So you'll have ample time to do the exam and the final part of it, but it's on the same day. And Megan says, will you post the week's assignments on the main page to remind us? Good question. I usually do the reminders when we do our discussion section. So I say this week we should be getting into Chapter 2 and moving into Chapter 3, and so we're going to hit the highlights and do this, yada, yada, yada. So I usually do it there. I can try to do some posting into the news section as well to remind people as we get up and running, if that would be a help, to be sure. And Lauren was asking, can we get ahead and start our work ahead of time? Definitely so. Definitely so. Again, the benefit of the online environment. If you see, right, you got something coming up for work, or you've got a major paper you have to write in another class, and you want to prioritize that way, the archive lectures, the lecture notes, you have the PhysioX exercises for the lab. You've got these flexible aspects of the course that are available at any time. And so you know that, the first exam's coming up, you want to get all the way up to Chapter 3 very soon, you can go right ahead and do that. Now, Christina was asking, how long do the Thursday sessions typically last? I would say a Thursday session would typically last from an hour to an hour and a half on average. We're usually looking at a couple chapters, like I said, going over the high points and then asking and answering questions. That's about how long it is. And Debbie's question is, Test 5 and the final exam, both on campus. So 2 times you come onto campus, 1 time for exam 3 in the middle of the semester, 1 time during finals week for the exam 5 and the final. The final exam and exam 5 go together. So you come into the classroom, Dr. Johnson is there, she hands you exam 5, which covers the last few chapters in the book. When you get done with exam 5, you drop that to her, she gives you the comprehensive final, and you continue on. So David says, are your exams geared a lot from the lectures online, or are there questions specifically from the book that you don't mention online? Yeah, so I talked about that a little bit earlier. For the most part, the content that you need to know for the exams, you'll find in the lecture and in the lecture notes. But like I said, I can't really cover all the specific details. Sometimes we don't have time. Sometimes in the lecture I try to focus on the main points. And so, there may be a particular topic that we didn't have a chance to cover or something like that. So doing the reading is important, not only to reinforce what you hear in lecture, but to fill in any of those small points that we didn't have a chance to get. But I'll reiterate that most of the information that you need to know, though, you'll find in lecture. Now notice, says, how do you access the lectures if you miss them? Now all the lectures are already recorded because, like we said, they're archives from a previous semester, actually a year ago, when I was doing it live. So when I was doing it live, we were doing 2 lecture sessions live in this format per week, and then we were creating the archives. You guys get the benefit from the fact that the archives are already there and ready for you from the get-go, like Lauren was asking about. So there's a link on Desire to Learn to go to the list of archived sessions. That's not a worry. The archive sessions will have the lecture archives on there from last year, but they also, if you look at the dates of the archives, they will also have the archive videos from the weekly discussion sections too. So like when we get done tonight and I shut down the recording and stuff like that, if you go to the list of the archive sessions, you'll see one with today's date on it. So those will be available each week also. Other questions? Okay, so Leifa is saying, so our regular lectures are coming from the archives. Exactly so. So the regular lectures are coming from the archives. And then when we have the weekly discussion sections on Thursdays, if there's something new to add to it, I can add it in there. If we want to discuss it, we do it then. Or if we want to, like I said, go over some of the high points of the lecture. So in that way, you get the benefits of both, right? So you get the actual solid lecture material that you would typically get, but then you get the additional Q&A and discussion of it also to help reinforce it. All right, well, that's in essence what I was looking to cover today, to get you guys oriented and things like that. We've been in here a little while. Usually if it goes long, I'll give you a break, about an hour, and then we can continue if necessary. But like I said, we covered the things that I wanted to cover tonight. What I'll do is I'll hang out for a few minutes in case other questions come up. But if you have questions, you can either hang out here and we can chat about them, or you can send me an email. So remember that in Desire to Learn, that's where we're going to get our information in terms of lecture and lab. We've got a schedule on there, the syllabus is on there, and this week is when we're covering Chapter 1, right? Next week is Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. The week after that is Chapter 4 and 5, and our first exam is September 4th, okay, covering the first 5 chapters of the book. So make sure that you are up and running with this. Like we said, this week, get that schedule up and running. Get it on your, your tablet or your phone or whatever. Put reminders on there and start out strong. Okay, good. What was this? Leifo was asking about. We can take a look at the other lecture figures. Oftentimes, if there's other things, like if I pull a figure from a different textbook and it's not in the lecture notes or something like that, I may put an extra copy of it up there. Mostly it's for, we have our animations in there, and I probably haven't fully populated the extra figures yet. But that's where they will go if we need them. Okay. Well, like I said, make sure that you take the tour and you know how everything works in the course, and make your own schedule and start on that schedule. Start learning this stuff and make sure that you're getting things done. If you haven't sent me a picture, make sure you do that too. That was part of that first assignment. And as Lauren's saying, I would say start right from the beginning. You got that lecture schedule and the lab schedule. You could print those out. You could put them on the wall in your office there, your home office, or wherever you're going to be doing your work, and pay attention to those. Look and see. Each week we're doing this and that. We're starting with Chapter 1, and we're going all the way through it. So first thing you do is you get your lecture notes off of Desire to Learn. Second thing you do, you could read the textbook if you want, or you could go to the list of the archives and find that Chapter 1 lecture, and then watch that Chapter 1 lecture. And then do your reading, and then continue to do your studying, etc. All right? Okay, so I will do the official end of the discussion section this week at this point. If you have any questions, email me. So if you got to go, you can certainly log out. And I'll hang out for another few minutes to see about any other questions or chat that we need to do. Other than that, I will see you back here live next Thursday. Okay? And I'll try to post in the news section, some of those reminders about what you're supposed to be doing, etc. Okay? All right. We'll see you again soon. So I'll be doing Chapter 1 this week, and then, because if you look at the schedule, Chapter 2 and 3 go on next week. So I jump right into Chapter 1 even this week. There's no assignments for the discussion sections. It's mostly just to make sure that we're understanding the materials we go through. And Leifel's asking about leaving rooms that pause the audio stream. If we're doing it live here, it doesn't do anything with it. It just tells everybody that you're not there in case I'm asking a question or something. And Lynn has a question on cellular extension. I'll just see what that is. Louie's asking about a question about online tests. Are you talking about one that you had put in the chat area or one that you had emailed me before? Let me look. I'm scrolling through somewhere. Okay, now I see it. So for online exams between 8 and 10, you can take it anywhere between 8 and 10. You just have to make sure, the latest you would want to wait would be 8:30 because you only have 9 minutes to take it. And Lynn was asking about the research paper. Yeah, there is a small scientific article paper that we're going to do associated with Exam 2. It's not a big one. It's actually finding a scientific article, a primary literature article on a particular topic, and then writing a summary of it. But we'll get more information about that as we get into exam 2. Yeah, and if you have questions, for sure, yeah, go ahead and email me. So Lynn was asking about the quizzes. Yeah, that's a good question with the quizzes. For those, since they're more study aid, you usually have, like I said, it depends on how many we're having, but you usually have at least a couple days to do those. And so you can take those online anytime within those couple days. So the quizzes, because they are, it's an assessment, but it's more of a study aid, you have a little bit more flexibility with those. The exams, because they are formal assessments, they all have to be on the exact same day, exact same time, etc. But the quizzes, there's some flexibility.